There is growing uncertainty on the future of America's role in facilitating peace between Ukraine and Russia. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff abruptly canceled plans to take part in talks with European and Ukrainian leaders in London Wednesday. The State Department said it was a scheduling issue. It came the same day Vice President J.D. Vance questioned how long the U.S. was willing to act as a mediator.
We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process. But it's now time, I think, to take, if not the final step, one of the final steps, which is at a broad level, the parties saying we're going to stop the killing, we're going to freeze the territorial lines at some level close to where they are today, and we're going to actually put in place the kind of long-term diplomatic settlement that hopefully will lead to long-term peace.
Vance's comments came just hours after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said there would be no discussion of Ukraine recognizing Russia's annexation of Crimea as part of a future peace deal. Russia took control of the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, which the U.S. and Western allies have long opposed. President Trump responded to Zelensky on Truth Social Wednesday, saying, quote, "Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory," adding, "The statement made by Zelensky today will do nothing but prolong the killing field, and nobody wants that." CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie Daggett joins us now. Charlie, where do peace talks stand? How crucial are the next few days?
Stalled, but not flatlined just yet. There just simply hasn't been that much progress in the past few weeks, and it's about as close to an ultimatum that we've seen so far, with, as you said, Vance doubling down on those threats that the U.S. Would walk away. It's not the first time that's been said, but it's been said again from the peace deal if Ukraine and Russia don't accept the U.S. terms. But again, when Rubio and Witkoff pulled out of those talks in London, those talks were sort of reduced to junior ministers, so nothing of substance came from them. Special envoy to Ukraine Keith Kellogg attended, but really Stephen Witkoff has become the point man in negotiations. We understand he's headed to Moscow toward the end of the week to continue direct talks with President Putin. It also comes as the NATO Secretary General is headed here over the next couple of days. So both Trump and Hegseth have been pushing for European allies to take a lead role. So maybe this is like a tandem effort in diplomacy, pushing NATO to do more and maybe pulling Putin closer to making a deal.
Vice President Vance suggested Ukraine and Russia's borders could look similar to where the lines are drawn now. Does that mean each side would take their own territorial gains? For example, Russia would keep areas of the Donbass region, Ukraine would keep most of Kursk?
Yeah. On paper, yes. But first of all, Ukraine has all but lost any territory it held in Kursk, down from like 500 square miles to now just like a sliver near the border. So that has ceased to be a bargaining chip that Zelensky had once hoped for. Yes, it would suggest that Russia would now occupy 20% of Ukraine, including that Donbass region, some of which it's occupied since 2014, including critically, Crimea. But the proposal on the table would freeze the front line as they stand today.
Is that something Ukraine would ever agree to?
Not likely at this point. Certainly there hasn't been any mood music coming from Kyiv in that direction. Ukraine has made clear from the start they want all their land back, but recently started to sort of soften that stance. But to quote Zelensky just yesterday, you said it, Ukraine will not legally recognize occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about, he says. It's against our constitution. So this shouldn't come as a surprise. He's been saying this right from the start. He said it to me the last time I interviewed him in Sumy last year. It's a non-negotiable. But of course, that's partly aimed at his own domestic audience. But those words have rankled President Trump, who called Zelensky's remarks inflammatory. He says he's got nothing to boast about, and the situation is dire. But the proposal reportedly calls for U.S. recognition of Russia's claim to Crimea. So not necessarily Ukraine's recognition of Crimea. And I think President Trump pointed that out. So there might be something in the wording, might be something in negotiation, but it may not be the deal breaker that it looks like right now.
We're getting some clarification on a conversation you and I had Tuesday, and that is regarding the Pentagon's Inspector General, who is evaluating Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's use of the Signal app to share attack plans. What can you tell us?
Right, there's a question you asked that I didn't have the answer for. The official line is this is an ongoing evaluation. And you may remember that Inspector General announced in earlier this month, they would look into the Defense Secretary's use of a commercial messaging app without actually naming Signal. That was after it came out, after that he shared sensitive details of military operations, to say the least, against the Houthis. So from what I understand, what I've been told, this second round, as it were, using his own personal phone to inform his wife, his brother, and his lawyer on that same Signal app, that will fall under the review that is already underway.
Okay, Charlie Daggett, thanks so much.